Amen. Well, I'm really glad she's here, aren't y'all? Yes, amen. I'm going to share a story, and many of you have heard it before, and so I apologize if it's a repeat, but I'm very aware that our church is growing, and there are some new faces, and there are people who are watching online, and I want to introduce myself. I'm Kassi Mount, and I'm Pastor Kenny and Sandy's oldest daughter, and I grew up in this church from infancy and just love you all so very much. As I have always been a hopeless romantic. When I was little, as maybe 3-4 years old, I was a flower girl in 2 weddings, and it just moved me in a way. And so I would traipse around our house with dish towels on my head, pretending it was a veil. I had a bride costume that I lived in. I love dresses more than anything else. And even in high school, I spent hours poring over bridal magazines. I was talking to Kate recently about weddings and how much I love them, and she said, Cass, I don't love weddings like you do. And I said, really? What high school girl didn't have a slew of bridal magazines? I thought it was normal, but I guess it's not. I wanted a career when I was growing up, but more than anything, I wanted to be a wife and I wanted to be a mom. That was my dream, and in my mind, that all started with a really great love story and getting married. That was my goal. I went to college at Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida, and my freshman year, I met the man I would one day marry, Joel Mount. Joel, wave your hand. Yeah. It was a long road for us. When we met, I thought about leaving this part out, but I don't want to embarrass Joel, but I think it's important because it shows you the type of guy he is. I wanted a friendship with Joel, and I think he wanted something more. And he didn't back away. He didn't find somebody new. He walked me to my dorm room from our classes every day for 4 years. Okay? Keep that in the back of your mind, because while all this other stuff is happening, there's good old faithful Joel every step of the way. Every summer during college, I came home and waited tables. I couldn't imagine a summer away from Wanchese. And when I went back to school for my junior year, I had a sassy new haircut, and I had matured a little bit. And I connected with a guy that I had known previously, but we just were acquaintances, and he was older, very sophisticated, and I caught his eye. And the fact that he would be interested in somebody like me seemed really too good to be true. And I was swept off my feet. I felt like I had struck gold, and I knew this is what I wanted. Because he was older, he was very interested in getting married, which is what this girl always wanted too. So things moved pretty quickly. We began dating. I respected him and thought I had a good thing going. I would talk to my parents about it on the phone, and they had some reservations that I really didn't understand. I'm older now, and I get it, guys. When they met him, they had even more reservations, and a lot of red flags went up. And so what did Kassi Midget do? For those of you who think little Kassi never had a rebellious streak, you're about to find out differently. I avoided their phone calls, and I started talking marriage with them, and we went ring shopping, and I picked out a stunning ring that I wanted. My parents started praying and fasting, and I pulled away a little bit. I later learned, side note, that Joel was telling his parents about the massive mistake I was making with my life, and they too were praying. I trudged ahead because this is what I wanted, and I didn't understand why everybody couldn't just calm down and let me have my dream come true. Didn't they see I was happy? Didn't they see everything was okay? I got a little resentful. I'm sorry for that. There was a lot of confusion for me during that period. I remember Joel still walking me back from class. If we're being honest, people at that Christian school thought I was two-timing because they saw me walking with Joel every day as my buddy and walking with my boyfriend in the evenings. And Joel looked at me one day, he said, "Is it really worth all this?" And to me, I thought it was. I had increasing confusion, and it seemed like more and more people who I love and trusted kept saying, "Kassi, this is not right for you." But to me, it looked like my dream come true. And I remember at one point my boyfriend said, "You've been brainwashed all your life." And I should have just known right then it was a problem, but I was very, like I said, confused, and won't the enemy do that? I came home on break, and I was in an evening service in this church, and I was kneeling right where Joel is right now. And I remember praying, and I said, "God, I don't see it. I'm confused. You have to show me. I'm hearing from this person. I'm hearing from that person. I'm being told I've been brainwashed. Who do I believe? What do I do? I need you to show me." And there was no booming voice. There wasn't even a whisper. But just like that, there was a deep and absolute knowing. Tinky Scarborough calls it, I had a knowing in my knower. And that's all I can say. And I knew I had to get out of that relationship. Now, the difficult part was, even though God had given me an answer, no, he didn't change my feelings. I was still in love, and I still wanted to move forward, and I still wanted my happily ever after with this person. For the next few days that I was home, I resolved that when I got back to Florida, I would end the relationship. And I'm telling you what, Kenny Midget is really good at funerals. He's really good at weddings and sermons, but he also comes in clutch during a breakup. He arranged for a friend to follow me to where I would break up to make sure that if it went south and if things turned abusive, I had a way to get out of there. And I remember telling him, I said, "Dad, I have messed up because I've picked out a ring. Knowing you would not give your blessing, I have picked out a ring. And I don't know how to break up with somebody that I have led to believe I would say yes." And I tell you this because I may not get a chance to speak on a Father's Day, but it's a beautiful picture of redemption to me, because he said, "Cass, if it comes to that, you tell him I'll buy that ring." And I really appreciate that. When I got back to Florida, I set up a meeting. I set up a time to go see him. And I was filled with fear the whole day. I didn't want to break up, but God had said, "Yeah, you got to break up." And I remember thinking, what if this is my only shot? What if this is the only person who is ever going to fall in love with me? What if this is my only proposal and I'm turning it down? And all throughout that day on campus, there were people who had literally just gotten engaged, were about to propose to one another, and it was just rubbing it in my face. When that evening came and the time to meet him arrived, I knocked on the door. I walked in the room, and the lights were dim, and there were candles everywhere, and there were rose petals all on the floor. And I realized I was walking into a proposal. And he led me to the middle of the room, and he got down on one knee with the ring that I had picked out. And with that visual in your mind, I want you to just pause, and I'm going to pause too. Because right then I felt like I was being presented with what I wanted. And my plan and my dream, and it was all in front of me. And in an act of audacious faith, even though I wanted to say yes, I said no. And the trajectory of my life changed. Sean Scarborough at Family Worship Center in Lakeland, Florida, said once, "There's something about obedience that God uses to demonstrate his goodness to you." And don't I know it? For a few months after that, I went through a period of mourning and grief. I grieved the end of a relationship. But more than that, I mourned my plan and the loss of it. And I really didn't think I'd ever have another chance again. During that time, that period of me pulling myself together, the Lord gave me two visuals. Whether they were dreams, visions, I don't know, but just like Miss Reba said, sometimes he gives us things in our brain. One of them was, I was on a train with this boyfriend and my parents, and my dad in my dream kept saying to me, "He's got to get off." And I was wearing the engagement ring on my finger. And when he got off the train, I looked down, and the rings I had chosen morphed into tarnished hoop earrings that were just dangling on my fingers. And I realized that my plan wasn't what I thought it was. The second visual that I had was I was in a glass skyscraper, kind of like a tower. It was cylindrical. And there was a spiral staircase that went all the way up. And I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I made it to the top. And I was thinking, I've arrived. This is it. And just as I was saying that at the top of the staircase, God burst through with a fist the glass ceiling and said, "We're going higher." So let's talk about what higher looked like. As I went through my period of mourning, the day after the breakup, who do you think knocked on my door to walk me to class? Joel Mount. And he saw my swollen eyelids and my puffy face. I was a wreck. And he said to me, "I think you need some ice cream." And he took me out for my first Shamrock Shake, which are on sale at McDonald's right now. If you haven't had one, you need to go get one. They're seasonal. Over the next few months, we kept doing what we've always done. We walked to class, we walked back from class. Walked to class, walked back from class. I came home for the summer. We talked on the phone, and he was my best friend. And it got to a point where I realized if we were going to spend any amount of time together, we were going to be together. But I was scared to death. And I was going through some things that just papers and assignments and stuff. And I came across a paper that I had written, and it was a list of things that I wanted in a future spouse. And it was really good stuff. I want someone good with money. I want someone who loves family. I want someone with the same values as I have. At the very bottom, though, I wrote it in the form of a prayer. If I get everything above, it'll be awesome. But if there's any way that my husband could be my best friend, that's what I really want. And I said, "Oh God, I have been looking to be swept off my feet. And this whole time, you've been giving me exactly what I wanted. You've been giving me a best friend. And a best friend doesn't happen overnight." And did Joel sweep me off my feet? Well, sure he did. But you know what? More often than not, we're still walking side by side together. And that's what I really wanted. I'll read that quote again. There's something about obedience that God uses to demonstrate his goodness to you. I can honestly say I wouldn't be living here. I wouldn't be as close to my family as I am. I wouldn't have the children I have. I wouldn't have the peace that I have if I hadn't said no to that marriage proposal. And I'm so thankful that when we step forward in obedience, God has exceedingly abundantly more than we ever thought or even asked to imagine. Thank you.